filled in the bubbles to spell my name. I filled them in to make a B or because I knew that this SAT did not determine my future. It was because I didn't know what was going to happen tomorrow. I've had experiences where I was on a mountainside and a tornado came through. That could have been the last day of my life. 60-mile-an-hour winds, the radio's telling us to go find a building to hide in. Anytime you have a plan, life deviates from it.
It seems that way.
You can't help it. It's just, there's 7 billion people in this world. How are you supposed to control the circumstances?
Yeah.
So
that's one of the things that I think about is, planning doesn't always work. And so my question is, are we better off just adapting to the moment, so to speak? And because we live in a society that trains us to pre-plan for things, to control for the future. And that's the schooling system is like that, the workforce is like that, the voting system is like that, the government, everything is geared towards future thought, future control. And there's such a massive negligence towards the opposite, which is living in the moment and adapting in the moment.
It's almost frowned upon by a large portion of people, which is a shame because, if you look into routines, a routine is the building block of a plan. It's a structure. It's you do the same thing every day to get the end result at the end of the week. Now, what happens when something, disrupts that routine? It's earth-shattering. You're not prepared for it. Now, to enter any situation with no plan, anything that happens will not take you by surprise because you left yourself open towards any option, good or bad. And usually the outcome from being so open tends to be more positive, in my opinion. Don't get me wrong, I've gone through a lot of bad stuff in my life, but I always came out in a better situation in the long run because I chose not to focus all my energy on making what I wanted to work instead of just letting things happen.
Yeah, it's a funny thing because I think the people who try to control the most, the people who try to plan for the future the most, I think they're the most fearful. I think they live in the greatest amount of fear. We tend to think that the guy who works hard to fill his bank account with money and he's got his ego and he's got his shiny car and he kind of prances around like he's the man. Almost everything he does, which defines that ego persona of his, that appears on the surface to be pompous and confident and fearless, all that stems from fears. Fear, the impulse to predict and control, the need for a bank account and that security there, typically these types of individuals, they have a job, a typical job, the 9 to 5, materialistic job, 9 to 5 job, where it's predictable, it's controllable, they got their money so they can plan for their future. All these things are kind of coming together, and the question is, how would they manage to get by without those things that give them that
if
petty...
there's a massive change, an instantaneous change,
Yeah,
they wouldn't be able to. Adaptation comes from being open and not planning. You can spend your whole life hoping to retire with a 401k, but like I said, what happens if a car swerves across the road and hits you? What happens if you didn't make it to that 401k mode to your retirement? What happens if you worked all hard through high school and college to get the good job and the good job doesn't come? That's what's happening to people in our generation now. So many people put so much faith, they sacrifice bits and pieces of themselves just to get this piece of paper because we're told to. That's the plan. You go to school, you get into college. You go to college, you get a good job. You get a good job, you get a good retirement plan, and then you'll be happy. Now, I'd much rather spend every penny I have today on what makes me happy today than save and plan for what's going to happen when I'm 60 years old. Most kids our age, they're graduating with these great degrees after paying $100,000 for 4 years of college, and they have to pay that back to the school with interest. So even when they get their 401k, how much of that's really going to be theirs by then? You know, and
They're indentured servants.
and what happens? You know, if they're dating this girl in college, you know, right before they get the job, and they get her pregnant. You know, that's them deviating from the plan unintentionally, and that can destroy them. It can really rot their emotions. You know.
Yeah.
And I feel like the more free living lifestyle. I'm not saying like be like an anarchist and fight systems or anything like that. I'm just saying, you know, like I partake in the system in the U.S. government. I pay taxes. I have a driver's license. I register my car under my own name. I have a credit card that I pay. But none of that is part of the plan. That's all just stuff that happened. Like I didn't even get my license until 2 years after I was able to. For 2 years I didn't even drive. Yeah, I didn't see a reason to if I knew people I'd rise, and then eventually when no one gave me a ride anymore, I went and got a car. You know, it wasn't planned. It's this, my neighbor's mother died, and he was like, "Hey, I got this car." I said, "All right, I'll buy it." You know, and I feel like if I put too much effort into it, it would not pan out so well in the end.
Yeah. It seems like there's a massive dissatisfaction with the present moment for so many people. You know, the guy who has to plan to retire, you know, the guy whose entire life is a process of building up to retirement, and then that's when it all pays off. I may not like my job too much now, but when I retire, that's when it's going to be great. It's going to be like a never-ending vacation. By the way, notice the idea of a vacation. I mean, if you ever look at like traditional ads for, you know, like a vacation, it's vacation to the Bahamas, the ads will say something like, it's old people, the ads will say things like, escape to the Bahamas. And notice the word escape. I mean, escape is like a word used to describe, well, you're getting away from something you hate. It's getting out of captivity. See, to escape from the Bahamas, to escape to the Bahamas means your job sucks shit and you're trying to get away from it.
Yeah, why do you think pharmaceutical companies make so much money? Because, I mean, first of all, it starts in public school. We anesthetize kids with ritalin and Adderall to follow, you know, these statewide tests, which prove nothing, but statistics prove nothing in the end. They're falsified numbers. That, you know, so we anesthetize kids to focus on this pointless, mundane information that will not be retained in the long run and not even applicable in life after school. And then, you know, they get this job that they get it not because they love the work, but because they love the income that comes from it. And because of this end result that they're hoping for, this false dream that we're handed on you know, force-fed at a young age.
Mm-hmm.
Grow up, get a good job, you'll love life, you know. Problem is, people become stressed. They start needing, you know, Xanax or some other depression medicine. All these things are just more anesthetizers. It is numbing people's brains and making them focus so much on just that end goal. But there's more and more things that change in life. The most consistent thing in life is change. You know, the world goes round. People change. There's new people. People die. People are born. Political leaders fall. Political leaders rise. You can't control any aspect of your life besides what you're doing today.
Yeah.
And people don't embrace that fact. Instead, they just give in to the system. They become hooked on medications to fix their thought process about how unhappy they are. Stress is a leading cause of death and disease and just all sorts of physical and emotional problems. And it all pretty much roots from people trying to stick to a plan. Because honestly, if you don't have a plan, things go wrong, you're not stressing about it. You're just waiting for the next random thing to happen. New situations will arise.
Absolutely. Takes a beating. Yeah, we're good. That's true. It seems like we're doing everything we can to avoid acknowledging the present moment. Because for so many people, the present moment is so fucking miserable. So for the worker who hates his job, all he has to look forward to is that little dream in the future called retirement 40 years from now.
In the hopes of a bonus check or something.
A bonus check. Or the kid on Ritalin who needs ADHD to to focus. Like, he can't naturally focus on the present moment because he knows the present moment is this school system, which is a freaking prison system of mind-numbingly boring regurgitation.
Yeah, everybody learns differently too. You know, some kids learn better in groups, some kids learn individual. You know, some people are better at night, some people are better at day. So you really, you know, it's just everything is set up to be so strict and almost like a tunnel vision. You know, like you see the end result and you assume that this straight line is how easy it's going to be. You just travel in a straight line. The problem is that straight line is hills and mountains in between and shark pools and all sorts of other problems. You know? And honestly, you can enjoy those trials and tribulations if you choose to ignore the end result and focus on the current action. Instead of looking at that flag at the end of this massive trail, think about just how cool it would be to get over that first mountain. Think about how great the view would be at the top. Think about how amazing it would be to just conquer this one trial and tribulation that you're dealing with. Yeah. It's embracing the now and giving up on the idea of a perfect future.
It seems like that's true, like, evolution. That's true, overcoming of challenges in life. We have, like, these corporate approved challenges, like, you know, make the minimum number make the profit margins for the week.
Yeah.
You have, like, these corporate approved challenges in life that, you know, will get employee of the month, and you get your name in a little portrait in the office, and then that's supposed to make you feel like you've accomplished something. And yet, what could be more daring? What could be more indicative of overcoming challenges than stuff that's really daunting? You know, living in the moment, adapting to spontaneous challenges that require you to apply a level of consciousness that your 9-to-5 repetitive robotic job simply doesn't require. You know, so it's amazing to me, like, there's just a degree to which we have to numb ourselves out to the present moment. Like, not just the retirement in the future, not just, you know, ADHD medication, but like depression medication as well. The present reality, the present moment is so fucking miserable for people that we have to drug ourselves out of it
just to get through the day,
or have a pie in the sky.
Not even to enjoy the day, but to just get through it. These people aren't taking these drugs to smile; they're taking this drug to stop frowning. You know, that you understand? Like, they have a straight face. They're not smiling, just perfectly straight, blank, nothing. You know, that's all these drugs are really doing for them. That's all that they can hope for by following a plan. They say idle hands leads to devil play. Idle hands just lead to play. Why is it the devil's play? You know, you with free hands you can do whatever you want. It doesn't have to be the devil's work. It could be anything. You know, so with a plan, your hands are busy. They're working towards that goal. Leave one hand open. You know, now what can you do? Anything.
Yeah.
And I literally swear my life by not having routine or plan. I mean, guidelines, yes, because, I mean, straight anarchy will lead to entropy. You know, you can't have chaos without order. You can't have order without chaos. They go hand in hand. You know, if you have a uniform circle, that is perfection. That is order. It's continuous. It's symmetrical. But the inside is empty space. Now that's chaos. You remove one, you remove both. You cannot have one without the other.
Yeah.
You know, so to not plan is not chaos, but kind of like adopting the idea that both exist simultaneously and that you can alternate between the two at any point based off the context of what's going on, the present, you know, what situations arise.
Yeah, the whole dualism stuff. You know, without up, you can't know what down is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that is interesting. And I was thinking about that a few weeks ago, and I was like, you know, I think dualism is a perspective. And I was considering whether or not the most empowering perspective to take would not, like, it's kind of like maybe like good and evil, for example. Like, you can't really know what good is without an evil, and vice versa.
Exactly.
I think that's accurate. you need to have these opposing forces. And so I think the tendency for people is we want to serve one side or the other of the dualistic spectrum.
Make it black and white, and we
Black
choose
and
to
white.
pick a side.
Yeah, we pick sides. And I wonder if a more empowering stance would not be to choose one or the other, but to step back even further and just embrace both.
That's the concept of a yin-yang. You have your white side, you're good, but there's a tiny black dot of evil in it. You have your black side, which is evil, but there's a tiny white dot of good in it. And that no matter what, they're both shared in the same space at all times. And it's really just how you take it as it comes,
Yeah.
And if you want to smile at the end of the day, then you gotta just let the day happen and make the best out of it. Don't worry about tomorrow, because it'll come. It might not, but you'll find that out tomorrow. You gotta worry about today.
True that.
That was the end of our conversation. Word. Worry about the present.
Worry about the present, absolutely.
We're recording this, by the way. So
Oh.
just letting you know. It's going to be on my YouTube channel.
Hi.
In case you didn't want to be on.
No, I don't care.
Cool.
Um,
Yeah. I was going to say something else, but I forgot. I think it has something to do with that dualism stuff. Yeah, okay, that's it. Take care.
me too.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get up at 9:30.
I'll probably go now.
If you're not really here.
Ciao.
Yeah, there's something else I was going to say. Some separate topic, I think. I can't really think of it now, but...
In the end, you have to do what makes you happy now. Or else you will go your whole life blind to the fact as to how happy you can be. To worry about the future, to think about the past. Especially, the past is a whole nother subject. Because when we discuss the future, we discuss that the future will come inevitably, and you have to let it happen. Now, a lot of people determine their future based off their past. Any event that happens in someone's life, they see it from their perspective and they turn it into a story. The story they retell in their head 1,000,000 times over every day. This story, this story, this story, this story.
Yeah.
It's their story. And it's they start to get such an opinion about this event. What they need to do is step back and just view it as an event. It's not a story, it's factual things that happen that have nothing to do with you because they're not in your control. And if you can let go of that, you can enjoy today more because you're not worried of repercussions. You're not concerned about what might happen in the future because of what happened in the past.
Yeah.
It allows more progress for your own personal growth. in my opinion.
What I find, what I'm curious about most is what causes certain individuals to cling so much to the past. and
Loss
past
aversion.
events. Loss aversion.
Loss aversion. Humankind does not like to lose what they have. It's we're born with it. No person without practice and I guess like overcoming their consciousness is able to just lose something and not care.
And where does that stem from? From resources, limited resources. We fear losing resources. What is that?
I don't know. It's just kind of there. I mean, even for myself personally, before I came here to Chile, I gave up everything I had, all my personal belongings, my car, my house, my clothes, all the music and art that I collected, instruments, anything that meant anything to me, I gave away. And even though I tried doing this consciously, it still kind of hurt a little bit every time I gave away something. I was like, I had this for 5 years, I really like this, but then I had to tell myself, why'd you have it for 5 years? For no fucking reason. I wanted it that day.
Wow.
But there's no reason for me to hold on to it after that day. I've had it for the past 4 years, 363 days, for no reason.
Sitting in a drawer collecting dust.
Standing, just on a table. A piece of paper where I write, a poem on that I never read again. It's just been sitting on that desk. And a pile of 100 more of them. These things should be constantly traded and given to other people. They should not belong to one person, but the lost version's there. We try to collect stuff for ourselves and keep it for ourselves. You know, I don't want to say it's a survival instinct. I think it started with early cultures. You had hunters and gatherers. You know, the hunters were the people who got the food so that we could survive. Now the gatherers mainly just collected stuff. You know, that they, you know, you see television shows about hoarders and stuff. People who can't let go of even junk and trash because they view it as a possession and not as its own separate entity, just an object that floats in this grid that we live on, you know? And
well, you know what's interesting? Is there a fundamental difference between a hoarder and the average person who collects material things?
Absolutely not. No.
They're basically the same.
A
Just one's
hoarder,
little more
is
extreme.
maybe, is an extreme version of an average person.
So it's
people are just too naive to and accept too much of what we're told about life and society to see that. You know, most people view hoarders as someone with a problem, but then they're the ones sitting there with a 60-inch TV that they spent thousands of dollars on, and if someone asked for it, they would not fucking give it to them.
Yeah. They're both suffering from the same dysfunction, just
different context.
One's a bit more extreme than the other.
Well, the context is different, but in the end,
it's a later stage of
the
dysfunction.
idea is the same. The notion.
Yeah, I mean, then that's so powerful because, at least as a metaphor for people who, you know, who are attached to their material possessions, it might be an effective metaphor to explain to them, like, hey, there's not much of a fundamental difference between you and that hoarder that you think is out of their freaking minds. I mean, the only difference is that the hoarder feels a greater, maybe not a greater codependency to attachments, material attachments, but, well, definitely a greater attachment, but they certainly apply attachment to more things than the average person. Like, you know, they'll keep a diaper full of shit. They'll keep trash.
You shouldn't be unattached to everything, but you need to understand that at any point, whatever you are attached to can leave you.
Yeah.
And you cannot let that affect you in the long run, or even in the immediate. You should be able to let it go.
Do you think that philosophy should also be applied to your own existence? Because that's something that can also actually...
Absolutely. You know, I live every day with no clue if I'm going to wake up tomorrow. I smoke cigarettes. People tell me it's bad for me. I know it's bad for me, but honestly, so is the fucking food I'm eating with GMOs in it. So is the air I'm breathing in America. You know, everything is bad for you. If you're going to focus so much on the bad and what might happen 10 years down the line from it, you're never going to smile. You know, you're going to live in fear the whole time.
So damn true.
You need to just do what makes you happy today. You know, love the objects you have if you have them, but if they leave you, then let them leave you. There's so much more in this world that you don't even know about until you go out and see it. To be so attached to so few things.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of a shame because it's not any specific culture that's this way. It's humankind that is this way, and that's why I'd say it's not really a cultural based thing that caused us to be this way. It's something that was there and early. It's the loss aversion that is. It's like a subconscious meme. It's a thought that has been in your head since day one, and it's a shame because really we lose more than objects on a daily basis, and people don't even realize some of the stuff they lose, you know, or even some of the stuff they gain because they're putting too much energy and time into these tangible objects that serve no purpose outside of filling a false sense of satisfaction.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's also true with relationships. Like, if you listen to the average love song, I mean, it's like emotional codependence to the extreme, to the suicidal extreme almost, where, you know, people, we also rely on other humans and our bonds with other humans to fill vast voids within ourselves. And that is one of the most destructive things. I mean, you see it all the time, all these abusive relationships, and people break up. Sometimes people kill themselves because they're no longer with the person that they claim to love.
And to be honest, I relate a lot of that to marriage. Marriage is a concept that was developed by religion, and it really serves no true purpose. Why do you need to attach yourself to another human being who has their own conscious thoughts, their own perspective, their own experiences? Why do you have to say that you will be with them forever and that they're going to make you happy 40 years from now because you're happy today from what they did? When most married couples, probably fucking argue more than they smile at each other. In the United States, it becomes even tied in with the government. You get tax cuts. There's like 1,200 different like benefits that come from being married. Well, honestly, if you just love someone and you have an attachment to them, then just tell them you love them. You should not need to sign your soul off to them. You might as well sign your soul with the devil there.
Yeah.
I've argued the concept of marriage for years. It's been a problem with a lot of my relationships because when I bring that up with a girl, with how they're raised, usually doesn't pan out so well.
Yeah.
They don't agree with me or even like that I say it.
Yeah.
But I consider myself a realist. A realist at the same time. I have faith in good things, so like I'm not a pessimist realist. I'm not an optimist realist either, because that's not even existing. But somewhere teetering on the fence between the two.
Yeah.
And marriage is always a concept that I just didn't understand how most women in America define themselves by a ring on their finger.
Oh yeah.
How if their friends get married, they start to heckle their boyfriends. When are you going to give me a ring? What the fuck does a ring have to do with anything?
Yeah, I thought you love each other unconditionally.
Yeah. It should be daily actions that prove it. And when those actions stop, you should be able to move on to another.
Yeah.
The whole monogamy thing it developed later in mankind. It's not basic human nature to be monogamous. It's literally from Western culture specifically becoming so prominent that monogamy even is what it is now.
Have you heard of the book Sex at Dawn? Yes, Sex at Dawn was written by Christopher Ryan. He tries to put forth the scientific, evidence-based case that humans, for the majority of our history, we're not monogamous. That monogamy arose with the onset of private property and agriculture. It was kind of came up around there, or at least in Western society, that's where it came up during that time period. And and then the implication. It's funny how like people were a married couple, they refer to their spouses as my wife.
Yeah,
my
possession.
Yeah, it's like ownership.
Well, we relate marriage and monogamy to emotion. We like to believe that it's an overabundance of love that is what bonds us as a person for eternity. The problem is, if you look at any other creature, look at, for example, similar brain structure to ours, killer whales. They have the relatively same design of a brain as a human being, except the lobe that processes emotions, which we like to think that we have more emotions than any creature on Earth. However, the lobe in their brain that processes emotions is much larger compared to the rest of the brain in a killer whale. When killer whales mate, they have their babies and they stay with each other for life. However, one male will impregnate 6 female whales, and all of them stay together. They become one big family. This is not a whale dedicating himself. And these creatures feel emotion more than us. And still, they're not monogamous. They stay true to that one that they had the baby with. They stay with them. But it doesn't mean that that's the only one for them. There's no such thing as only one for them, It's the only people that you should honestly feel attached to inevitably. See, no, that's not even true, because even your family you can't feel attached to permanently. It's just each human being goes through so much on a daily basis that you cannot know if you're going to feel the same way about another human being. the next day.
It's not very reliable. It's not reliable for your sense of contentment to depend almost entirely and exclusively on another person. That's
If
the
anything,
essence
doing
of
that
marriage.
is trying to have a plan, and then what happens when your plan
Yeah.
fails? You go through divorce,
Yeah.
you lose half your assets, if not more, you go through an emotional earthquake,
Yeah.
and then fall towards all sorts of negative actions. It can...
So what are people running from? Why do these impulses exist? Why do we have the retirement pie in the sky? Why do we have the ADHD? Why do we have the depression medication? Why do we have these marriage concepts that we hope will fulfill us and gratify something in the future or in something beyond ourselves? What do you think is like?
We're sold on social memes of false promises, but they're presented to us as good ideas initially. Now, a meme is literally just a thought or an idea, and it can spread and it can die off because it shares a space with every other meme. And so whatever one becomes more prominent is the one that will spread through culture. Now, the problem is people didn't have resources to become as knowledgeable about things globally before in previous years, decades before, a century ago. And if you look back at it, it takes time for people to realize how wrong things were before because they start to learn more. Marriage in the Catholic Church has been around for hundreds of years. It was, King Henry VIII, I believe, or the 14th, that started his own church because the Pope would not let him divorce his wife. His wife wouldn't produce a son, kept having daughters. He wanted his son to continue his legacy, so he had mistresses. One mistress finally had a son. The Pope would not let him leave his wife to marry the mistress because to guarantee this son to become the next king, because he didn't agree with it. And the Pope back then had to give you permission to divorce. So he started his own church, the Church of England. And this is proof of the evolution of the realization after time that everything we're told is pretty much like on false pretenses. It was the wrong idea. That's all it was just an idea, and it spread faster than humankind meant for. And so it almost seems like that's how things have to be when you're born into that.
Yeah.
And it takes someone to give you this other idea for that to spread and the first one to shrink. Because now look at the divorce rate. 50% of first marriages end in divorce. 60% of second marriages end in divorce. People are getting married twice and still fucking up, and they're still trying to get married. Why the hell are they signing these contracts with these people? Why can they not just tell this person for X amount of years, I love you, and then one day go to them and say, I'm sorry, the emotions are not there anymore, and continue in a relationship with someone else? There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to do that.
I think it's very true what you say. It's before I was exposed to these alternative ideas, I always thought I would get married one day. It's like the default. And it's like if you don't know any better, you don't do any better. I think it's true. I think a lot of people, probably most, just don't even consider the possibility of any other way of living their lives other than to get married. And so they abide by this system. They abide by that cultural norm. And then I think there are a lot of people who are exposed. Some are exposed to an alternative way, but they're just so emotionally tied up with the romanticized idea of marriage that it would take too much effort to change their consciousness in order to be more independent.
Look at pop culture. Pop culture does it to them. Romantic comedies. I mean, these are movies written by men to paint the perfect picture for women, to set up this false idea of what things could be. And then all these women are getting mad at the men in their life for not being this character. You know, the first month of a relationship is all about impressing the person. The second month is all about getting to know the person. The third month is all about finding the faults in the person. All the following months are all about living with it, dealing with it. You know, and you have to make a choice on a daily basis if you want to continue that or not. Most people fear getting away from it because we're told that we're supposed to push through these things, that we're supposed to try harder when things get rough in a relationship. But why? what makes that person the only one? 7 billion people walk on the earth. That one person's the only person that's gonna make you happy. You're kidding me.
It's just nonsense.
All the daily interactions a person can have. You think that one person's gonna make them happy? I come from a household that my parents had my brother and I at a very young age. They got married because it was the right thing to do. A few years later, they realized it was the wrong thing to do.
Yeah.
You know, and I got to see that, and it was. I don't want to say it made me negative towards marriage at a young age, but it just really made me see that, you know, someone can always find someone else who's going to make them happier. Even currently, my mother remarried, and multiple times her and her husband have split up. They've been together now for like 12 years, but they've taken separations from their marriage twice, because there's times in each of their lives they're going through different experiences and just cannot coexist together on the same plane. They have to go their separate ways, and then they come back. You know, and honestly, people look at, you know, ending a relationship as the end. But really, you just need to continue your own path and see if you reunite down the line. It's happened to me with one of my ex-girlfriends. We just had different lives going on, and we became distant, and in time we came back, and then we became distant, and in time we came back. And it's fine, you know, that there's no hard feelings ever about it. We get very emotional when we're together, you know, not negative, very, you know, strong, loving emotions and stuff, but we both realize that there's setbacks to putting all your time and energy into one person. She stopped going to school because she wanted to be around me more. I didn't get to travel as much because I didn't want her to be upset, and then we would break up and I wouldn't go travel as much. Usually it's because of me that this happened. I just said, fuck it, I want to go out here and do these things. I want to travel the country. I want to spend my weekends on a mountainside talking to 30,000 people rather than sit here and watch a movie with you. I'm sorry, but that's just what I want to do. And, you know.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the worst things is when people don't, when people, in order to honor the relationship, they sacrifice themselves for the other person.
You should never sacrifice any bit of yourself for anything.
Ever. And so what happens, and then what really scares me, but what really, one of the probably the worst things about, you know, marriage and emotional codependence at that degree is, to what extent does the person that claims to love you try to hold you back from you going off and doing the things you really want to do in life? Because if they are emotionally dependent on you serving their interests, and that is the whole premise of the marriage, then at a conscious or subconscious level, they're probably going to be trying to reel you in and stifle you and hold you back from doing what you really want to do in life, from doing the things that may not coincide with what she wants for you to do for her, or him, her, you know, whichever, you know. So that's something that's always really annoyed me, because I see, you know, I had a relationship a few years ago that was like that. It was totally destructive.